This might be a bigger problem than anyone expected, because what just happened with Cam Skattebo isn't just a bad quote, it's a signal. And right now, the New York Giants might be realizing they've got something they didn't fully account for. Not talent, not production, something harder to fix, awareness. And that matters more than people think, because Skattebo is supposed to be part of the next phase, a tone setter, a physical runner, a culture guy, the kind of player you trust to represent the locker room as much as the playbook. But then the podcast clip drops. He says CT isn't real, calls asthma fake, tells people to just breathe air, and suddenly the conversation changes, not about what he can do on the field, but whether he understands the league he's in. And that's where it gets interesting. Because at first, this feels simple. Young player, bad joke, quick apology, move on. He even goes on social media, calls it a lapse in judgment, says it was tasteless. Case closed, right? Not exactly. Because the NFL isn't just sensitive about this topic, it's built around it. CTE isn't some random issue players debate in locker rooms. It's one of the defining pressures of modern football. It shapes how the league operates, how teams manage players, how fans view the sport itself, and how organizations protect their image. So when a young running back who hasn't even established himself yet publicly dismisses it, that's not just a mistake. That's a misread of the entire environment. And this is where the real issue starts to form. Because this isn't about outrage. It's about trust. Teams don't just evaluate players on film anymore. They evaluate how you handle attention, how you handle microphones, how you handle being part of something bigger than yourself. And Skattebo just gave the Giants a data point they didn't have before. Not about his speed, not about his strength, but about his judgment. And that matters more than people realize. Because here's the part most fans miss. The NFL is constantly looking for reasons to reduce risk. On the field, off the field, everywhere. If two players are close in talent, teams will always lean toward the one they trust more, the one who won't create unnecessary noise, the one who won't force the organization into damage control. And right now, Skattebo just introduced uncertainty. Even if it's small, even if it's fixable, it's there. And once that question exists, it doesn't fully go away. Now here's where it really shifts. Because running back is already one of the most replaceable positions in the league. Short shelf life, constant competition, new talent every year. You don't get the same margin for error as a franchise quarterback or a star receiver, which means the bar is different, lower for entry, but stricter for staying power. You can't just be good. You have to be reliable. And reliability isn't just about ball security. It's about everything. Preparation, consistency, and yes, how you represent the team publicly. So when something like this happens early in your career, it doesn't define you, but it tags you quietly, internally. Coaches remember, front offices remember, media remembers. Not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle one, in the kind of way that shows up later. When decisions get close, when roles are being decided, when opportunities are being handed out. And this is where the Giants situation becomes more complicated than it looks, because they're not reacting publicly. They're not making a big deal out of it. And that's normal. That's how teams operate. But internally, they're recalibrating. They're asking a simple question. Can we trust this guy in bigger moments? Not just in games, but in everything that comes with being an NFL player. And if the answer isn't a clear yes yet, that slows things down. Maybe not dramatically, but enough. Fewer chances, shorter leash, more pressure to prove you've learned. And this is the part people don't talk about, because development in the NFL isn't just physical. It's mental. It's behavioral. It's understanding the weight of what you say and when you say it. Veterans learn that over time. Rookies, they find out the hard way. And right now, Skattebo is in that process. The apology helps. Of course it does. But apologies don't erase perception. They just start the recovery. And in a league that moves as fast as the NFL, recovery has to be immediate, consistent, and visible. Otherwise, the narrative sticks. And once a narrative sticks, it follows you longer than a bad game ever will. So the real question isn't whether this was a mistake. It clearly was. The real question is what happens next. Does this become a one-time lesson or the first sign of a bigger issue the Giants didn't see coming? Because in today's NFL, talent gets you in the door. But awareness, that's what keeps you there. And right now, we still don't know which version of Cam Skattebo the Giants actually have. This might be a bigger problem than anyone expected, because this isn't just about something Cam Skattebo said, it's about what it reveals, about the mindset, about the awareness, and about how quickly things can spiral in today's NFL. Because in one podcast moment, a young player went from building his reputation to putting it at risk. Right now, Skattebo is supposed to be part of the next wave for the New York Giants. A physical runner, tough, old school mentality, the kind of player coaches love. But then this clip drops. He's asked a simple question: is CTE real? And he says no, calls it an excuse, then doubles down, says asthma is fake too, just breathe air. And just like that, everything shifts. Because this isn't locker room talk. This isn't off the record. This is public. And in today's NFL, that matters more than ever. But here's the problem. The NFL has spent years, decades, trying to reshape how people think about player safety, especially around head injuries, especially around CTE. This isn't some fringe topic anymore. It's one of the most serious issues tied to football. And this is where it gets interesting, because the backlash wasn't slow. It was immediate. Clips started spreading, fans reacting, people questioning not just what he said, but how he could believe it. And then the apology comes, fast. He calls it a tasteless joke, says it was a lapse in judgment, promises to be more mindful. And on the surface, that should calm things down. But that's not the full story, because apologies don't erase first impressions, especially when they touch something this sensitive. And now there's a different kind of question being asked, not what did he mean, but what does he actually think? Because in the NFL, your words don't just represent you. They reflect on your team, your locker room, your organization. And now the Giants have to deal with that, quietly, internally, without making it bigger than it already is. And this is where the pressure builds, because Skattebo isn't a superstar, not yet. He's still proving himself, still trying to earn his place. And when you're in that position, you don't get much margin for mistakes like this, especially when your identity is built on being physical, on taking hits, on playing a violent game. Because now, every time his name comes up, this clip comes with it. And that's a problem, not just for PR, but for perception inside the league, inside the locker room, and even with fans, because the NFL has changed, whether players like it or not. Awareness matters now, accountability matters now, and understanding the risks of the game, that's no longer optional. So even if this really was just a joke, even if he didn't mean it the way it sounded, the damage, that part is real. And now the real question is, will this just fade away like most off-season stories, or is this the moment that quietly follows him the rest of his career?